friends, today I'm introducing the new Crafty Meraki Petal Poetry Press-tacular plate and coordinating die. This is a solid die that will cut out all of the individual pieces. I'm going to be using my Better Press system, so I am inking it up using some black Better Press ink. I'll be using the Better Press or Spellbinders paper that was specifically made for this system. I'm going to be doing a little bit of watercoloring today. So once I get this inked up, I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine, and then I'm going to show you just how beautiful of an impression that we are going to get with this Press-tacular plate. The new release dropped on March 10th. There is an Instagram hop going on right now. So if you click the link in the description box for my Instagram account, then you'll be able to hop along for a chance to win a gift card to the Crafty Meraki store if you missed that. So let's go ahead and run this through our die cutting machine, and then we're going to do some easy watercoloring. I have my Tombow watercolor pens. I'm going to use, it's kind of like I don't know, a mid-tone blue. It's a really pretty blue that I'm using around the edges of each of the petals. And then I put my brush in the water. I always make sure to kind of like swipe it off on that microfiber cloth. I like to have that handy when I'm doing my watercoloring because it really does assist me in being able to not have too much water when I'm touching the paper. So what I do is go around the edges, and then I use that watercolor brush to draw the ink out. I do leave white space because I want a nice highlight on these petals. I'll eventually cover that white space up, but in the interim right now, I'm just leaving that white space, building up the color around the edges of each of the petals. Now, I'm not going to watercolor this entire panel. It's repetitive because I did color the leaves and the flowers all the same color. So I'm just going to show you one of the flowers. And because I need to let some of the petals for the flower dry in between layers, I am going to color two of the leaves. So it's quick watercoloring. This is one of the easiest ways to control the amount of color that's going down on your panels. These pens are fabulous. The Corinne brush markers are wonderful, as well as Zigs. I have all three. I'm a watercolor lover, and I hope that this is a process that you find that you enjoy doing just as well. If not, I would love for you to try to give this a try. So I started off with kind of a citron color as the base color for my leaf, and I just went ahead and filled in the entire leaf. And then I brought in a darker green, making sure that I had some of it underneath the petals because there would be some shading there, and then along the veins. And I'm just drawing that out, trying to get a variation of color so that the leaves aren't just one color. I'm going to come in with a darker pen, and I'm going to do this in layers. So when you're watercoloring, it's not a one and done process to get the best look. It's best to go over your images multiple times, getting lots of layers of color, not trying to put everything on too thick at once. So there, I'm blending it out, getting the highlights. I'm going to let that dry and go on to my second leaf, and then I'll come back to that, and I'm just going to define those petals a little bit more with a darker color. So we're going to go back to the leaf and do the same process, go along those veins, draw that out with that, or draw that out with the citron. Sorry, I thought I was using my darker marker for some reason. I'm going to let that dry, and we're going to go back to the flower petal. I'm going to use some yellow for the center. And here's where I'm adding that darker green. So I just want a variation of color. I want a lot of depth, and I think that I'm just ready for spring. Are you? It's right around the corner. I've been doing lots of flower cards, just enjoying the fact that I have an opportunity to use bright and vibrant colors, things that I'm looking forward to getting into my garden. I know a lot of people are starting the planning for their gardens and their flower gardens, and they're doing some of the seeds right now. I'm ready. I'm ready for some warmer weather. I'm ready to get out on the water and just enjoy. I'm done with winter. How about you? So here's where I'm just adding that little bit of definition to the petals. Here's the entire panel all finished. And now I'm going to use the die. And I love how it's a single die. It allows me to just run this through quickly. And I don't have to try to align several different dies. I can just put this one on, run it through my die cutting machine, and I'm going to get all of the pieces. One of my favorite things to do once I get all of these pieces separated is to add splatters, and I'm going to do that with this Dr. P.H. Martin. I think it's like white paint. The reason that I like this one, especially with watercolor, is sometimes the pigment from white, when I use a gouache, will actually soak up the color that's underneath. And I'm finding that with this particular brand, using it specifically with watercolor, it's not taking on that color, it's retaining its white color. So here we are with some die cut pieces. I cut a panel down to 4¼ by 5½ inches, that blue one. The second layer that I'm adding some foam tape to has been cut to 4 by 5¼ inches. This is called the Pagoni Mania. That's what I did the embossing with. And I did the same thing. It's actually cuts out little stitch marks of the pattern. And I did the same thing for the oval. So I want that oval to appear like it is part of the panel, and you'll kind of get an idea when I start putting this together. But always like to add a little bit of dimension to my layering panel. It's something that, I don't know, I just have this thing for dimension. So I always add dimensional tape. I think that it just adds a little bit more of a wow factor to a card. I have never had an issue mailing cards that have the dimensional tape in it or on it. And I typically will place the front of the card towards the back of the envelope. So where the flap comes over is where the front of my card is going to be facing. And I've never had any problems with them going through the postage meters. So I want to add a little bit of twine. I'm going to add a bow at the very end to this. It's one of my favorite accent pieces for these cards. So I'm going to wrap this twine around about three times, and then I'm just using some tape. This is a Spellbinders tape that I'm just going to attach that so that it stays secure, and then I'll just cut off the excess right there. Okay, so let's start building this. I'm going to take these ovals and I'm going to align the green one with the blue one. And I'll use my glue press to get that glue on there. We'll align this up and then we'll add it to our panel. I want it to have an inlaid appearance. And again, I want it to appear as if I cut out the center of the panel, and that green oval is just going to be a continuation or have the illusion of a continuation of the panel. And then I'm going to add some 1/8 inch foam tape around the outer edge of that yellow frame oval that I created. Now, when I do add around circular objects the foam tape, I do like to remove the release paper because it does give the foam tape a little bit more flexibility, which is really helpful when you're trying to, go around curves and such. So I'm going to use these thin foam strips. I get these off of scrapbook.com. They are my favorite. I use them frequently. If you happen to see my last video where I put where I created a card using the peonies. These are the same foam strips that I used to get the dimension for those beautiful peonies. Now I am going to make some adjustments. I'm just doing a quick addition of this, and then as I see where it's peeking out, I can easily lift it. I Because I've taken the release paper off, it is going to lose some of its stickiness, and so I will use my wet glue to go around the edges, for 2 reasons. One, it's going to give me a little bit of wiggle room when I'm trying to add the frame so I can get it in just the right spot, and 2, it's going to add just that little bit of tackiness. It's going to allow it to adhere a little bit better so I don't have to worry about when I do mail it that it falls off. So just adding that little bit of reassurance to the project. So see, now you can see how you have the optical illusion that that green center actually is the card panel and it wasn't cut out separately. And I just kind of like that illusion. One of the things that I really like about floral dies is that you can arrange them in so many different ways. Today, we're going to put this cluster together. I'm going to show you how I used all of the pieces to create a beautiful bouquet. I am going to have one of the little rosebuds that's going to be peeking out from the upper right-hand corner, and then the remaining pieces for the majority of them, I am going to use them in my bouquet. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to align this. There is actually it's not the same on both ends of that oval, so I had to make sure that I had the right end at the top. I'm gonna get this aligned, and then we can move on to creating our cluster. So here is our floral cluster. I'm going to be using the largest one. There is another piece that comes with this that has 2 flowers, and I've omitted that from this particular arrangement. I want to make sure that I don't have too much of the leaves hanging over the edge. I want to make sure that it's still going to fit into an A2 envelope. And because I have that foam tape there, I'm just adding the glue where it's going to be touching that oval. And then I have this little rosebud, and I'm going to tuck it underneath over on the upper left-hand side, adding a little bit of fullness to my arrangement. And I'll have a separate cluster of leaves, and I'm gonna go ahead and add those to the bottom right. I'll just tuck those in. So don't be afraid. Even if you have full arrangements of flowers, don't be afraid to cut them apart and to change the arrangement. In fact, my next video, at the end of the month, I'm going to be showing you how I deconstructed one of these full-size um, die cut pieces and created my own individual style. So here of cards. So here we go. I'm going to add this hello. I thought I needed that foam tape. I'm going to have to cut some of it back because it's not laying flat. And the part that I need to cut back is what's touching on the oval. So I actually added a little bit more than what I needed. So I'm going to remove that because I want that hello to be level with my frame. And then once I add the sentiment, I will add my bow. So I went ahead and created the bow off camera. It takes me a little while with my nails because I do a lot of wrapping around and then I have to tie it. And I don't like for you guys to have to sit through any of that. So I should be Oh, I'm gonna add a little bit more foam tape to the very end. So it kind of hung off that oval and I needed to add just a little bit more foam tape. There we go. Now everything is nice and level. So here's our card, and then I'm going to come back in with my bow I'll just use some of that wet glue and my reverse tweezers to hold it in place. And once I get this in place, I'll show you a close-up of the card, and that will complete my card for today. So I want to thank you so much for joining me. I hope this gave you some ideas on how to use the Petal Poetry Press-tacular plate. These beautiful flowers are going to help you create some wonderful spring cards. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and I will link my Instagram in the description box again if you want to hop along for more inspiration. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks so much for watching.